Okay, thank you. For those joining, we'll just be recording the webinar just so it's available afterwards, and for people who signed up who weren't able to join, so they can follow us afterwards. So let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've just set up this webinar as an opportunity to introduce our plans for the Nature Action Dialogues, which is happening in Cambridge next month, so the 12th and 13th of May. And just to give a bit of a flavour of what to expect and to hear from some of our event partners about their plans for the event. So today we have our webinar happening. If you have questions, feel free to add these to the Q&A portion of Zoom, and we'll get to those either over the course of the webinar or we can respond as well as we go. So we've got around sort of an hour today. We'll aim to wrap up in 45 minutes unless there's lots of questions, and then we're available to stay on for a bit longer. So what we're going to be covering is, let me just try and whack it. There we go. Yes, so I'll just be introducing myself. I'm Stacey Bagley. So I'm the Principal Specialist for Nature and Business within UNEP WCMC. So my role spans kind of all our elements of private sector engagement and includes leading on the Nature Action Dialogues itself. So we're convening this webinar as an opportunity for people who are thinking about attending or are already signed up to attend, just as a bit of an overview and a flavour for what to expect in May. So I'll just cover a bit more information on why we're holding this event, who it's for, the types of themes and the different organisations involved. And then I'll be handing over to our event partners from UNEP FI, Proteus and IBAT to give a bit more information on their engagement and what sort of sessions they're leading at the event. And then we have time for Q&A. As I say, please use your Q&A portion as we go, and we can get to those questions at the end of the presentations. But first, to kick things off, we produced a little video of the Nature Action Dialogues last year. So I'm just going to play that to get us started today. It's only a couple of minutes long.
The Nature Action Dialogue allows the opportunity for professionals to come together from across a range of different sectors in the corporate world, with finance institutions, to discuss the challenges, opportunities, and their work on a day-to-day basis incorporating nature into their business functions.
Attending Nature Action Dialogues is a great opportunity to meet people, a wide range of organizations, companies, peers, investors, and academia to share knowledge and experience.
It's the kind of place where you find lots and lots of people who think really seriously about how it is that business can make a difference for the conservation of nature.
We're here to learn what's the cutting edge of measurement and tools and methodologies around analyzing nature risk.
We really hope that people come here to the Nature Action Dialogues from companies. Economic sectors really depend on nature and can take action to improve the state of nature and climate.
Scale is so important for the resilience of global biodiversity. So we need to do this collaboratively.
In order that we are able to make sure that the planet is still livable in the future.
For the third Nature Action Dialogues next year, we'll take on board the feedback from this year. We'll bring a package together for participants from across the corporate world with finance institutions to come together to discuss and plan for their action for nature.
Great. So as you can see, we're really looking to pull together quite a dynamic event that has lots of opportunities for collaboration and engagement across different sectors, across different groups, and really sort of harness the power of attendees for action on nature. So this year we have a fantastic theme. We're really thinking about what do we need to do to come together as we look ahead to global targets for 2030. So we're calling this year's event Countdown to 2030, and really thinking about how we can align ambition across the private and conservation sectors, and how we can really scale interconnected actions that look across this topic. So this is a really important cause close to our hearts here at UNEP WCMC, where we're really thinking about how we can empower actors across the world to support outcomes for biodiversity and people. So a lot of the work we do focuses around the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, how we can support people across the whole of society to see their role in contributing towards these global goals. As we look ahead to 2030 as well, we also have the Sustainable Development Goals, which are really seeing these interconnections across the planet, across society, across people, and the partnerships that we need to have. So this little figure on here starts to do some mapping of the different targets of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework against the SDGs. So there'll be lots of opportunities within the Nature Action Dialogues to explore these different elements, how they come together, how businesses and financial institutions can navigate them, and what the latest information and best practices around these topics from your own experiences attending the event. So why do you think you should come to the Nature Action Dialogues? These are kind of examples that we've taken from feedback from our previous attendees and really speak to the reasons that we felt it was important as UNEP WCMC to set up this convening space. So what we're really seeing and hearing is that there are some fantastic examples in the world of how business and finance are addressing nature, how they're thinking about their commitments and their strategies. So how can we support this community to come together, to share their learnings, to share what it's like in practice, trying to implement some of these commitments, and really how we take these commitments into actually delivering real benefits for nature. So we wanted to create a space where people can come together and share and discover from these insights. We also then wanted to sort of draw in the knowledge base that exists. So where are we seeing tested approaches, good solutions already happening that not only address biodiversity, but really think about those connections we see across the environment and people. So where are we seeing these great actions that address climate, biodiversity, water, health, and people together? So what does integration of those look like in practice? Where are the trade-offs? Where are the potential opportunities? We're also really proud that we create such a good space for peers and practitioners to come together. So we have some people who are decades in the nature space and the biodiversity space coming together to share their experiences. So we have a range of sessions sort of aiming from a very deep technical practitioner audience to more kind of general overview sessions and more strategic sessions so that everybody has something that they can benefit from in those agendas, but really creating space for those peers to come together and really think about what we need to do to shape action. And then finally, we're really trying to look ahead to the future. So what comes next? What those pathways looks like? What are the challenges that we're facing and how do we overcome those and turn those challenges into our opportunities? So that's the kind of atmosphere we're trying to bring together. And the Nature Action Dialogues itself, we aim it at a cross-section of different actors from different sectors, from different parts of society. So our primary audiences for the Nature Action Dialogues are financial institutions, our businesses who are all looking at kind of nature risks and opportunities, what strategies they can take, how they can address these responsibilities at different scales from portfolios, corporate value chain operations. And we're also looking to bring in a broad expertise from the conservation sectors. So we'll have different advisory groups, NGOs, standard bodies, business groups and associations really coming together to share how they're supporting business and finance and the kind of expertise that they can bring through the work that they are doing. So we have a really fantastic and dynamic group of people who come to the Nature Action Dialogues already. And for this year, we've already started lining up our attendee list. We've got some confirmations from a whole range of different sectors and backgrounds represented. So this is just to give you a little bit of a snapshot already of who's planning to attend and who you might be able to engage with if you're coming along or should you decide to come along. So we're including businesses from a cross-section of sectors. We have mining, energy, renewables, agri-food, etc. We have a different range of financial institutions attending, from banking groups, from investment companies, from convening companies and development banks, and then a whole host of different expert organisations, from standard setters, from associations and initiatives that are leading the business and finance agendas, and from the conservation NGO community like WWF, IUCN, BirdLife, etc. So we've already got a great attendee list shaping up, and we'll be keeping ticket sales open until the 3rd of May for additional people to attend, and then we'll be able to share that full attendee list with everybody who signed up a week before the event. So the event itself, we have 2 core components. We have our opening and closing plenaries, which are really sort of highlighting some of these high-level themes and getting conversations started and posing questions and challenges to the audience to take through the event and also carry with them after the event. And we also have a series then of workshop sessions that really get attendees working together. So this year we'll be having 2 opening plenaries that run in parallel. We'll have one plenary focused on the financial sector, and then we'll have another plenary focused on business. So within our finance plenary, we'll have some great speakers really exploring what can actually change financial behaviour, what is the role of finance in advancing action on biodiversity, and what are some of those enablers for change that can really shape positive action. And then for our business plenary, we'll be pulling together discussions around trust and practice, what that looks like for nature and people. So we'll be starting this plenary with an overview of the recently released IBAT Business and Biodiversity Assessment from one of the co-chairs. And then we'll have a panel discussion with different sector representatives, really getting to ground with what they're doing in terms of building trust, working on their different practices, how they engage with communities and nature within their landscapes and their supply chains. So some really big, thorny discussions happening that will kind of set the appetite and scene for the rest of the event. And then really the core of what we're doing through the Nature Action Dialogues is really trying to bring people together to have lots of opportunity for interaction, for discussion, for exchange and learning. So we really try and minimize the number of panels and presentations and really get people around tables working together and sharing with each other. So what we'll do is, in our agenda, we have a whole host of different sessions that are led by different expert organizations, and then they'll design those sessions to connect in sort of business case studies, roundtable discussions, scenarios, exercise groups. So there's a lot of different options and abilities to interact throughout the 2-day event. And that's what really makes the Nature Action Dialogue special, is that we can really get into the nitty-gritty with each other and have some great discussions. And then what we do is we break down the Nature Action Dialogues into some core themes. So these are the themes that we're really hearing from business and finance communities that they are interested to discuss, that they're experiencing challenges around, that they see the greatest opportunities within. And then all of our different workshops are grouped within these different formats as well. So the first is action across scales. So how do we start to think about value chains, landscapes, sectors, portfolios? We have sessions looking at those in particular sector contexts. We have them looking at the landscape value chain context, and also thinking about how we mobilize different actors across businesses within these. We then have a bunch of sessions that are looking at aligning financial flows. So what are those innovations we're seeing to be able to shift negative flows on the one hand, but also to mobilize new sources of finance to achieve positive outcomes. So there we have various sessions looking at investing nature, debating nature risk, improving investor relationships and communications between business and the financial sector, for instance. Under our evidence-driven decisions theme, we're really trying to connect the audience with emerging tools, leading resources that help you to accelerate science-based action for nature. So there we'll be hearing some case studies from businesses about their approaches to nature measurement. We'll be looking at tools for the energy transition. We'll be looking at data dashboards at the EU level as well. And then we have integrated solutions. So this is really how we can recognize and leverage action that really draws on these connections that exist between biodiversity, water, climate, and people. And here we have sessions that are looking at the value chain for plastics, nature positive oceans, and a really interesting session around how we can really leverage and learn from Indigenous knowledge and leadership and how they're doing business and what that means for big businesses like yourselves, kind of exploring these topics. And then our final theme is place-based nature action. So we know that we can think about these things in the big global systemic context, but fundamentally, we really need to be thinking about the actions that happen on the ground in real places to actually achieve these outcomes. So there we are aiming to bring together some real world case studies on how businesses can align their strategies with national priorities and local context. So we have some great sessions there looking at things like additional conservation actions, business contributions to protected areas, invasive alien species, for instance. So we'll have our full agenda available through an app. So once people sign up, you get access to the app with the full agenda. And we've also got a summary of the agenda available through the event website as well, which we can pop a link to in the chat. So with that in mind, I've got the plan next to hand over to our 3 event partners who are going to explain a little bit more about the work that they're doing and how they're looking to engage in the Nature Action Dialogues. So I'm going to kickstart by handing over to Romy, who's the Head of Nature Impact from the UN Environment Programme Finance Initiative, or UNEP FI. So Romy, over to you. I'll drive the slides for you.
Thank you so much, Stacey, and great to see our attendees joining and being interested in what we're bringing forward. So for my presentation, I have 3 components, so I'll flow through quite quickly a few slides about what is UNEP FI and what is our work. And if you want to learn more or engage more with us, obviously you should join us in Cambridge next month, because then you can engage with me, but also with others in the team attending. Then a second component of my presentation will be about the why we decided to partner with UNEP WCMC for this event for the 2nd year in a row. And then thirdly, I'll quickly speak about the sessions that we're involved with next to the plenary sessions that Stacey already presented. So UNEP Finance Initiative, overall goal of the nature work is integrating nature into financial decision making. So if we move to the next slide, you'll see a very nice quote of Eric Usher, who is our head. But what we really try to do with our work is really align the work of the global financial sector with advancing biodiversity goals. We, of course, have a very close relationship with the UNCBD in that regard, and really transforming nature from niche to mainstream. So a little bit more on the next slide about what UNEP FI is. You can see a big picture. If we go to the, firstly this one, so about us and our work. So we sit within the United Nations, really leveraging the voice of the financial sector. And on the other hand, we leverage the work of the UN with our private sector membership. Next to our institutional role, we also look at a systemic role. So how can the actions from our over 500 members be translated into global action? And then we'll hopefully go to the slide that I already promised, that looks into our membership. Stacey, if we can go to the next. So if you look at our membership, we're very much a global organization. About half of our membership is in Europe. Biggest growth of our membership is actually in the APAC region, and we have global programs, but we also have a very strong regional team that translates the global programs to the local context and vice versa, to make sure that our work is relevant across the globe. Then if we go to the next slide, a little bit more about our work. So with whom does UNEP FI work? Well, firstly, we work with 2 types of membership groups. On the one hand, we have our banking membership under the Principles for Responsible Banking, and on the other side, we have our insurance membership under the Principles for Sustainable Insurance, and then linked to UNEP's strategy that focuses on the triple planetary crisis. Our structure is also such that we have thematic teams working on climate, nature, but also pollution and resource efficiency. We work on topics relevant to our members. So we look into impact in the SDGs, and we look into risk. And of course, anything related to the environment has a social component. So we also have a social and human rights team. So if we go to the next slide, what are the priorities to accelerate nature positive action? So firstly, skill investment in the GBF that Stacey already mentioned. There is a huge financing gap mentioned. So our work contributes to closing that funding gap. Then the second component of that work is shifting capital. So to really work on sector transitions towards more sustainable pathways, and then ultimately, of course, aligning that within policies that can incentivize investments. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that nature has become really a core priority to our membership. We often send them questionnaires, and we see there that for them, nature is one of the key priorities they want to work on. And also increasingly, we see that our members across the globe, we just did a few sessions, for example, with our APAC membership, where they say it's no longer why nature, but it's much more about how do we integrate that? How do we overcome challenges such as data issues and other issues that they're addressing? So if we continue along those lines, Stacey, we see that being a UNEP FI member matters to financial institutions. So we've done some research with the MSCI Institute last year that showed that PRB members, so our banking members, outperform their peers on sustainability, but also financial metrics. We also see that our PSI, so our insurance members, have a higher ranking in key benchmarkings. And we see within the nature thematic that action is really increasing from a small group to a bigger group. So about 45% of the PRB members with nature as a priority have now set targets. And we also have 40 plus, I think it's actually nearly 50 members now of our insurance membership are taking action on nature through the PSI working group on nature. So if we continue, we work with our banks to really help them understand and manage nature-related risk. As a next step, we work on helping them set targets. This can be practice targets, so not financial targets, but we're also working on impact targets, now supported actually by the UNEP WCMC team. We help them to promote investments into sectors that restore nature, and we have a session about that at the Nature Action Dialogues as well. And we, of course, offer them with tools, guidance, and support. If we go to the next slide, you'll see that we are doing the same for insurance, which is quite innovative. Often the focus is more on the investment side of insurance, but we really have been working a lot on the insurance underwriting side, for example, translating TNFD guidance and other nature-related disclosure guidances to the relevance of the global insurance sector, and making sure that nature is embedded within their underwriting processes, but also working increasingly on how investing into nature is a way for insurance to reduce risk. And then lastly, of course, we work in a multi-stakeholder setting to work with regulators on how do we integrate that in long-term risk planning. On the last slide, and I won't dwell on all of the topics, we under nature, we have different topics. So we have topics like deforestation, freshwater, but I picked out ocean here because I think it's the most mature topic. So we've seen this year, I think UNEP WCMC was in the news that we've surpassed 10% of protected areas for the ocean now, but obviously we're falling short of the 30 by 30 quite a lot. So we, as UNEP FI Nature team, have been working on the ocean within our Sustainable Blue Economy Finance initiative and finance principles, and have developed guidance for the industry to really advance action on ocean and ocean-related sectors. We also have a membership with over 11 trillion in assets. So I think this is just another example of the work of UNEP FI. And I think with the next slide, I get to the bit about the Nature Action Dialogues. So I think I'm really echoing a lot of what Stacey already said. We see 4 reasons why UNEP FI is excited to participate and partner with the Nature Action Dialogues again. Firstly, because this is a very action-focused agenda. So yes, there will be a plenary, but most of the sessions are much more interactive and are much more focused on sharing and learning. And we feel that it's quite necessary as the action of our membership really moves from understanding the topic to acting on the topic, for them to be able to share their experiences and not to sit in a room and be silent, but rather to engage with their peers and others on this topic. Then secondly, and this is always a huge demand from our membership, is how can we engage with other stakeholders? So banks love to speak to other banks, or insurers like to speak to other insurers, but how can they engage with other actors, in particular real economy actors, but also science? So I think this is also a second reason why the Nature Action Dialogues are very relevant for us. And then thirdly, I think the link to scientific developments, especially in the current era of uncertainty, it's very important for us to be able to show our members a pathway that is vested into science. So for example, the IBAT Business and Biodiversity Assessment that was released earlier this year really debunked this myth that, only half of GDP is dependent on nature, really clearly saying all businesses depend on nature. And I think that type of messaging is really something what our members are looking for when they're discussing topics like nature internally within their own organization. And then lastly, obviously, providing a safe space for people to come together to discuss new ideas, to speak about new things they want to kind of test and see where their peers stand within this field. So I think those are the 4 main reasons, and I think they're not very different than the ones that Stacey mentioned already. And then on my last slide, I'll briefly speak about the 2 sessions that we're hosting. So the one on the left-hand side, where you see a multitude of logos, is a session organized by the with the Revenues for Nature project, which is a project of the Green Finance Institute, UNDP, and UNEP FI that looks at revenue models that mobilize private finance for restoration or conservation, and already have highlighted over 60 revenue models. In this session, we'll look at how investment in nature are strengthening supply chain resilience, reduce environmental risk, and protect long-term business operations. And we really want to speak about how nature-based investment models can move from pilots to scales and can be embedded within risk management and long-term value creation. Very interactive session, so please join us there. The other session that we're hosting is a launch of the action guide on plastic pollution for financial institutions. We'll be partnering with the Proteus Partnership and also with the FARM project, which stands for Financing Agrochemical Reduction and Management. It's a Jeff-funded project, and the University of Greenwich. So we'll be speaking about how we can mobilize funding for circular solutions to reduce plastic pollution and link this to wider environmental and health issues, because we now still see that pollution is often siloed, and that the link between pollution and other topics like climate, nature, but also, of course, societal issues is often not sufficiently clarified. So again, very interactive discussion with those partners. So with that said, handing it back to you, Stacey, and looking forward to the discussion. And if you want to know more, there's a QR code on the screen that takes you to our website, I believe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Romy. A really fantastic overview. I'll leave this on the screen just for a second for those of you scanning the QR code, and then we'll be coming on to our next speaker. So next up, we have Balint, who is a Programme Officer within the Nature Economy team here at UNEP WCMC, who is going to be talking to us about the Proteus Partnership. So Balint, over to you.
Thank you, Stacey. Hi, everyone. I'm Balint Ternik. I work in Stacey's team as the delivery lead for Proteus. So the Proteus Partnership, it is the key mechanism through which we engage with businesses at UNEP WCMC. It is built as a partnership model, so member companies pay a flat fee that is then pulled together to fund our work, supporting research into conservation issues, and exchange. Proteus partners have access to our knowledge products and our advice on integrating these nature issues. So what we're trying to achieve overall is to develop and share actionable biodiversity knowledge that enables businesses across all sectors to embed the values of nature in their decisions. We go about this in two ways. One is advancing actionable knowledge and evidence for business decision making, so essentially doing research and generating that knowledge. And the second one is equipping companies to act, making sure that they have the capacity, they build these tools into their workflows to actually make a difference for nature. And we do this through 6 delivery mechanisms. So firstly, there's the data sets that we're creating and the tools that we're developing. We're also convening participants in webinars like this, in the Nature Action Dialogues, and in different other opportunities. We provide guidance, so we produce briefs or technical reports around a certain topic, such as deep sea mining or most recent updates from a key policy event. We provide training to our members. These can be interactive workshop type or just kind of like a lecture style training about a recent update to one of our tools. We channel funding towards scientific research, so doing that primary research, building those key data sets and publishing them in academic journals. And we also provide technical support to our members, helping them solve problems while integrating our advice or tools or data sets into their processes. Next slide, Stacey, please. Yeah, I'm only going to mention just a few examples of all the biodiversity knowledge resources that Proteus has contributed to. Feel free to take a screenshot or ask any questions about these in the chat, but just to highlight a few, there are leading tools that we've contributed to their development, such as IBAT, about which you'll hear later on in the webinar, and also Encore. We've built global data sets like the World Database on Protected and Conserved Areas and the critical habitat screening layers. And we also created capacity building and engagement initiatives like the Every Job is a Nature Job initiative and the Nature Action Dialogues itself. Next slide, please. Yeah, all Proteus partner companies participate in the Nature Action Dialogues, and also these companies will be sharing their experiences across many sessions, as well as directly contributing to some sessions focused on business action specifically. So I just wanted to highlight these 5 sessions. The first one is about how businesses can contribute to the protection of 30% of land and seascapes across the globe. Then Every Job is a Nature Job. It's about what specific job roles can do to translate nature strategies into action, such as people working in finance roles, procurement roles, business development, or social engagement roles. The third topic links business models to indigenous knowledge and their values, and discusses how these can be integrated to benefit both nature and people. Next up is a discussion on nature-related impacts in value chains. It's an opportunity to share experiences and approaches. And lastly, there is a session focusing on the energy transition and also the available tools that you can use to safeguard nature while implementing the transition. Next slide, please. Yeah, just before I get into this slide, I just wanted to give a bit of background about how Nature Action Dialogues came to be. So the Proteus Partnership, it has been around for 20 plus years. And each year we have an in-person meeting where focal points for all the businesses that that are members of the Proteus Partnership meet, and we discuss governance, finances, work plans, and strategy. And then pretty early on, we realized that it's a big opportunity to bring all these brains together in person into a single place. So we expanded this governance day to be a 2-day event so that partners can have some more technical discussions, peer-to-peer learning opportunities on the second day. And then we started to also invite some external businesses to learn about their perspectives and also to expand our impact and influence their thinking about how they approach nature as well. And eventually this balance flipped between the closed and the open days, and now Nature Action Dialogues is the main event, the conference open to the public, where also Proteus partners participate. But we also have the closed Proteus annual meeting on day 3, which will be the 14th of May this year. This day gives partners and the selected number of invited businesses an opportunity to debrief after the conference, have the governance discussions, but also delve more deeper into conversations on these selected 3 topics. So dependencies and business risks, aligning approaches for biodiversity and local communities, and developing metrics for measuring positive impact on the state of nature. So if you would like to participate in this day as well, please reach out to me or to Stacy or anybody in the Proteus team, and we'll see if we can save a spot for you. And on the next slide, it's just some contact details. That's my email. There's also the Proteus email as well, but we have a new website as well, the Proteus Partnership. You'll have our contacts there as well. So please reach out to us if you're interested. Thank you, and back to you, Stacey.
Great, thanks so much, Balin. And yeah, a great spread of sessions available there as well. So last but not least, we'll be handing over to Mark from the IBAT team, so the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool, to give a similar overview of what to expect from IBAT at the Nature Action Dialogues. So Mark, over to you.
Thanks, Stacey. As you said, I'm Mark, and I'm a program officer at IBAT, or the Integrated Biodiversity Assessment Tool. If you jump over onto the next slide. IBAT is essentially a web-based map that provides access to globally authoritative biodiversity data that you can use to access raw data or reports that create outputs from that data. It's used for early stage impact, risk, and opportunity screening. We're formed from an alliance between 4 different conservation NGOs, namely BirdLife International, Conservation International, the IUCN, and the UN Environment Programme World Conservation Monitoring Centre. The vision that underpins all of the work that IBAT does is that authoritative biodiversity data results in organizations taking positive action for nature. Essentially, the core vision at the center of IBAT is that if we can provide access to good data, then companies will make good decisions for nature on the back of that data. And so our mission to support that vision is to provide the data, tools, and guidance to support companies on that journey, as well as to create a sustainable source of funding that goes back into nature's data. If we jump onto the next slide. Our progress against our mission and vision is that we've managed to reinvest $2.5 million back into nature's data in 2024 and in 2025. We have over 35,000 users across 250 organizations which are subscribed to our platform that have screened, as of this week, over 850,000 projects in the platform. So we're really excited about that, and we're excited to meet the 1 million milestone, hopefully some point this year. If we go on to the next slide. The reason that we're so excited to engage with the Nature Action Dialogues is for three key reasons. The first one is that the cross-sector mature discussions that are really detailed and specific, we find that super valuable to shape the direction of IBAT products. We can take some of the conversations that we have at the Nature Action Dialogues and feed that into the development pipeline of new IBAT reports for downloads to make sure that we're really at the forefront of what users need. It's also useful for products that are already in that pipeline to get feedback and showcase the features that are upcoming and are going to be released at IBAT shortly. And finally, it's a really good opportunity for us to engage with our users. It's not often that we are able to get face-to-face time with them, and that is really invaluable to us. We have 3 sessions at the Nature Action Dialogues this year, and we're hoping that each one will bring a lot of value in the cross-sector discussions that will be facilitated during them. If we go on to the next slide, I'll introduce the first session. So it's going to be called Navigating Complexities Around Implementing the Avoidance Part of the Mitigation Hierarchy. Essentially, avoidance is the first and most important stage of the mitigation hierarchy, but it's not as simple as just avoid the locations if you can. It's actually a really complex issue, and this sector is going to have scenario-based discussions where you can learn from your peers within the same sector as well as across different types of industry. And yeah, it's going to focus on why avoidance is critical and yet it's so difficult to implement in reality. The next session that we have is focused on our new IBAT Performance Standard 6 report, which aligns with the IFC's standards. It's going to involve a walkthrough of the updated report, focusing on how we've upgraded the outputs and hopefully are closer to what users need when they're doing a critical habitat screening. It's also going to introduce the new UN Environment Programme critical habitat layer and how it supports more consistent data-driven screening. And we're also going to go through the timeline of the updates to Performance Standard 6 and how those will impact businesses. The final session that we have is joint with the IUCN Business and Nature team, as well as with 1 or hopefully 2 companies which will be providing real case studies on how they've applied the IUCN Rhino approach, which stands for Rapid High Integrity Nature Positive Outcomes. Essentially, in a place-based scenario, how can you maximize your nature positive in that space with the species and threats that apply in that area? And it's about turning that global species risk into actionable insights that are specific to that location. So it discusses the use of star metrics and insights across 2 different sectors and also in different places in the world. And then the end of that session, we're going to have a look at how we can transition that process from a manual bespoke process for each company to a scalable IBAT integrated module that will allow you to calibrate for your sites. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll hand back to Stacey.
Thank you so much, Mark. And yeah, very excited for the IBAT sessions again this year. So that brings us very nicely to our Q2-3 timeframe here in the UK. So we do have some time for questions if there's any people want to bring forward. I see there've been a couple in the chat already. I can just look at those now just to answer those, and feel free to add any more as we go. So the first question was related to hybrid options for the Nature Action Dialogues. So unfortunately, we don't have hybrid options for the event. This is because everything is so interactive and so focused around the workshop discussions. It makes it very challenging to have a good hybrid experience when a lot of it is just sort of sat around those tables. So unfortunately, we can only offer in-person attendance at the event, but we feel that is the best approach for the type of ethos that we have for the way in which the sessions are arranged. The second question was related to interoperability between SEA ecosystem accounting and UNEP FI and UNPRI. So I don't know, Romy, if you've got particular thoughts on this, but I see Balint has also responded in the chat as well with some great session suggestions that are looking specifically at ecosystem accounts in a business setting as well. So there is something in the agenda on there, but encourage you to have a play around and look online at the agenda that we're curating so you can take a look there. Okay, so big question. So as expectations on the private sector to address nature-related issues increase, what evidence do you see that stronger nature action is becoming financially decision useful rather than just a reporting exercise? And which metrics are most credible for linking nature risk to firm performance? So yeah, a lot to unpack in that question. And again, this is something that we'll really be sort of exploring in the session, because you're absolutely right. You know, we really see that reporting should be an information source to inform action, but really the action happens on the ground and in the responses that business and finance take into that. So we will have sessions that are really looking at developments in the reporting disclosure space, how we move those forward, and also those examples of action that we're seeing from businesses and how they're picking the correct metrics to do so. So this is very much a live discussion, I think, that's happening at the moment, and there'll be lots of lessons learned, I think, from the room. You know, we definitely see that certain organizations that are coming have been working in the metrics space for many, many years and really bringing their experience to the table. And then for others that are exploring this as a newer topic and really sort of thinking through how they can navigate that in their own context. But yeah, I'll throw this out as well to Balint, Mark and Romy in case there's anything else you'd like to add to that. Very good and very big question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Adele, for this question. Just to add to what Stacey already said, I would say that we see the increased interest of central banks in nature as a topic. So the NGFS released earlier, I think last week, its nature package, and I think their interest shows that they increasingly see nature laws as a part of fiduciary duty. So I think that's an area where we can see proof for that financial materiality. Then when looking at nature-related risk in specific, I believe Nicola Ranger and her work at the London School of Economics will also be highlighted in the session, among others, with the nature values at risk study she has conducted for the UK, among others, showing that that could lead to a 10 to 12% loss of GDP in the years to come. But that this might even be higher for other parts of the world where there is a higher reliance of the economies on the values that nature delivers. So I think those are part of the discussions you'll see at the Nature Action Dialogues there. So I hope to see you there, Adele.
Great, thanks, Romy. Thanks, Adele, for the question. Mark, Balint, anything else you'd like to add on that one?
Maybe I can chip in with signposting to the latest IBAT Business and Biodiversity Assessment. It has a chapter on measuring business impacts and dependencies, and it will also build towards a monitoring focused assessment that will be coming out later in 2026 or in 2027. So I think that kind of is a very good summary of the latest science on measurement.
Thanks so much, Balint. And I see there's another question in the chat as well. And Romy, maybe I can throw this one out to you to begin with. So in what sense are kind of sessions going to be covering things like metrics and actions that really think about the alignment from financial institutions with the global biodiversity framework? How's that coming into your sessions from UNEP FI?
Yes,
this is
thanks,
from Vanessa.
Stacey. Unfortunately for Vanessa, our sessions are more focused on investments. So we have the revenues for nature session, and then we have the plastic pollution session that are focused on that. So I'm not sure if I'm the right one to answer this question, but I think maybe the Nature Positive initiative will be there. They recently released their State of Nature metrics, so I think that could be a good starting point, but maybe Balint or Mark have better suggestions.
Yeah, and I know there's also a session planned from Finance for Biodiversity, which is going to be looking at the nature measurement from the financial sector perspective as well. So they're going to be looking at this in the context of the upcoming nature measurement protocol, how this sits in the context of global action. So their plan is to bring together finance, standard setters, NGOs, all sorts of people to really think about what does impact assessment look like in the financial sector, and what are the lessons learned for that to carry forward into some of these more kind of global agenda and global action items. So I think that session will be particularly useful in sort of thinking about the areas that you're interested in. Yeah. And as I say, we have the agenda online. So for those who go to the website, there's an agenda tab, and there we've got an interactive agenda as well. So if you see a session that sparks your interest, you can click on it, and then it will bring up a bit more information in the session descriptions as well. So lots to get stuck into in there as well. Fantastic. Are there any more questions from people? Just checking we've covered everything in the chat. I think so. Fantastic. Well, if there are no other questions, I'd like to end by thanking everybody so much. Oh, I see there's a question popped in at the moment. To do any arrangements to cater? So unfortunately, as we are a charitable organisation, we unfortunately don't have funding to support people's tickets, visa and accommodations at this time. So unfortunately, yeah, we're not able to offer complimentary passes, or we're not able to offer travel and accommodation costs. So thank you for the question, but I'm sorry, that's not something we're in a position to do at the moment. Okay, so with that, let's close. Thank you so much for attending today and for your interest in the event. We hope to see you there. And oh yes, there'll definitely be lots of civil society. We will have lots of NGOs in the room. We have a couple of people representing Indigenous communities as well. And we have a whole host of different associations, NGOs, UN organisations, all sorts of people attending. And they will be the ones running the sessions. So all of our sessions are led by non-profit organisations for the most part, and this allows us to ensure a good representation of that aspect of civil society, and that we're bringing in those voices into the room. And we'll also have attendees from academia and different aspects as well. So a very diverse audience expected at the event, but feel free to reach out to us with more questions and more for more information on that if you're interested. Great. Okay, so with that, let's close. Thank you so much. As I say, we hope to see you next month in Cambridge. We'll just end by putting our QR code on the screen for those who need it, but we've also added links to the chats as well, and also our email address. So if you email the event at unepwcmc.org email address, we can get back to you and answer any final questions that you have. So thanks again, and thanks for your attention. And thanks to all our speakers as well for your contributions. It's been a really great session.
Thank you, Stacey. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.